Well, hello and welcome to this English lesson about personal transportation. Now, you might be wondering, what is personal transportation? Well, I wanted to do a lesson on how we move ourselves in the world, but I didn't want to talk about cars and trucks and buses. I wanted to talk about all of the ways we move or travel that are just for us, for one person. Some of these, sometimes you can have a second person. But all of the things that I'm going to talk about today, all of the personal transportation things that I'm going to talk about usually involve one person. Sometimes with some of these things, there is room for a second person, but never more than two. So once again, welcome to this English lesson about personal transportation. If you're still a little bit confused as to what this lesson is going to be about, you'll see in just a moment. Skateboard. So a skateboard is a small, I was just going to say it's a small piece of wood with four wheels on it. This is something that I never learned to do. I never learned to skateboard. But skateboarders usually have a skateboard and they go to places like this. This is a skate park in Canada and in big cities in North America. There will often be a skate park where people who like to skateboard can go. Skateboarding's pretty cool, but when you grow up out in the countryside, there are things you don't get to do. There's not a lot of pavement out here. There's not a lot of flat surfaces. So I never ever had a skateboard and I never learned to use one. My brother had one though, and he used it in the barn for a little while because the barn has concrete floors. But first personal transportation device, skateboard, sometimes used to get somewhere, but more often used just for fun. Hoverboard. So this is a newer device. I think 20 or 30 years ago, these would have been impossible. If I tried one of these, I would fall off. But it's basically a flat thing with two wheels, and the computer inside tries to keep it balanced while you're standing on it. Again, if I was to use one of these, it would probably zip really quickly in one direction and I would fall off and I would most likely have to go to the hospital with some sort of broken bone. But I have seen these at school from time to time. Students do have these. They're not allowed in our hallways, but I have also seen people using them outside occasionally. There's a park near us with pavement paths, and I saw someone using one last summer. I would never use one. A segway. Now, this is more my style. I have not tried a segway. A segway is a little more, let's see, what's a good word for it? A little safer, perhaps. Although I have seen some fail videos on YouTube where people have crashed off the path with their segway. But again, a segway is a transportation device where the computer inside and the sensors allow it to stay upright. So even if you lean back or forward, it doesn't fall over. It simply makes you drive forward or backward. So this is motorized. I should mention as well that a hoverboard is motorized, and we'll talk about electric skateboards in a bit. So this is a two-wheeled motorized. That means it has a motor. And like you don't have to pedal or anything like that. Now, this is something I would love to try. A one wheel is something that would work on my property. You don't have to be on a perfectly flat surface, but I hear that these are also things that older people fall off of sometimes. Maybe I should have said this lesson was about things old people fall off of. But no, a one wheel basically, like it says, it has one wheel. It's in the middle. And again, it uses sensors and a computer inside to balance. When you tilt forward or lean forward, it would go forward. Let me rephrase that. When you tilt it forward or when you lean forward, it goes forward. And then if you go the other way, it slows down or stops. So skateboards are cool, but as we become more and more modern in the world, people like to make electric versions of things. This is an electric skateboard. This is called a boosted board. And if you see on top, there's a little controller. The electric skateboard itself has a battery and it has motors. So it has electric motors, I think just on the back wheels, but it might be all four wheels on some of them. And you use the controller to adjust the speed. So you stand on the electric skateboard and you don't have to like push with your foot or go down a hill. You simply use the little controller to adjust your speed. Lots of fun. Ice skates. Now, this is something I do know how to do. I do know how to ice skate. A lot of Canadian kids learn to skate, maybe less now than when I was young. But when I was young, we would often go skating in the winter. I do have a pair of ice skates. I have a nice black pair of hockey skates. These are called figure skates, by the way. There are two different kinds of skates, but I won't get into it. But yes, ice skating is when you have, like, there's the boot part and then a metal blade. And the metal blade is sharp. And I don't know if you knew this, but the blade actually melts a tiny bit of the ice. So when you're ice skating, it's actually the melted ice under the blade that makes things slippery. Ice skating is a lot of fun. I haven't been ice skating this year. I did go to the arena, but I didn't bring my skates. I should do that. They do need to be sharpened. And of course, there's roller skates, which have four wheels, and rollerblades, which also have 4 or 5 wheels, but they're all in a straight line. Hopefully you can see the difference here. Let me make it bigger. Roller skates are something I would consider an older version of skates with wheels. Rollerblades would be a relatively newer. But what I mean by that is these are from the 70s and 80s. Rollerblades are from the mid 80s onwards. People decided. So a rollerblade is more like a hockey skate, but it has a single line of wheels on the bottom. If you can skate with ice skates, it's very easy to skate with rollerblades. They feel very similar. It's a little harder to push. It's a little harder to get up to speed, but definitely rollerblades. Again, some of these items are used for actual transportation. When I was a kid, I did skate to town once to buy some chocolate bars on the river. But generally, roller skates are for fun and rollerblades are for exercise or for fun. People don't often rollerblade to work or school, although you could if you wanted to. Then we have the traditional bike or bicycle. I think everyone knows what a bike is. It has 2 wheels, pedals, and a handlebar, and brakes. Good thing it has brakes, and a shifter. So you can shift into different gears. But this is definitely a personal transportation device that you could use to get to work or school, or you could just use for fun. And then there is, of course, the unicycle. So simply one wheel, not like the one wheel, but one wheel with pedals. And you have to have a good sense of balance in order to use a unicycle. But certainly, interesting. I have never tried riding a unicycle. This actually interests me, though. I should maybe try this someday. I think it would be lots of fun. And then, of course, we have electric bikes or e-bikes. Sometimes we take the word electric and we just use the first letter. So an e-bike looks a lot like a normal bike. But if you look at the middle part above the pedals, you'll see it's really thick because it probably has a large battery in it. And the back wheel at the center has a small electric motor. So as we move further and further into the modern age, people are doing things like making bikes electric, making them into e-bikes. Motorcycle. So if any of you have been watching my lessons for a while, you'll know that I actually had a motorcycle when I was much younger. It looked exactly like this one. It was a Yamaha 400 Maxim. It was red. This is exactly the motorcycle that I own. This is not a picture of mine. I just found one on the internet. A motorcycle is kind of cool. It's very cheap to drive. Gas is really cheap. It gets really good gas mileage, we would say. It's, I don't know, it was just fun because when you drive somewhere, it feels like you're outside. It feels like you're flying a little bit. The only thing I would say though is a motorcycle is very, very dangerous. So I would be cautious if I were you driving a motorcycle. Let's see here. There is another type of motorcycle called a dirt bike. So a dirt bike is a motorcycle, but it's built especially for going off-road. So a motorcycle is made for driving on the road. A dirt bike can drive on the road, but it can also drive off the road. And we call that an off-road vehicle. So a dirt bike has really nubby tires, we would say, if you see the tires. It's very high off the ground and it has really good shocks. That's what makes the ride smooth. So dirt bikes are actually fairly common out here in the countryside. My neighbors' kids have dirt bikes, and sometimes I see them driving out in the field with their dirt bike. So again, motorcycle goes on the road, dirt bike goes anywhere, pretty much anywhere. So this next little section is going to be kind of funny. At least it was funny for me. This is a scooter. This is a scooter. This is a scooter. We use the word scooter for a variety of things in Canada. This scooter is a small two-wheeled motorized vehicle. It's not a motorcycle. It's much smaller than a motorcycle and it goes much slower. They're very common in some parts of Europe. They're not very common here. But if I saw this, I would say, oh, nice scooter. I love the color blue. This is something that kids use, and it's similar to a skateboard, except that it only has two wheels and it has handlebars. They'll do little tricks and they'll drive it around on the sidewalk and they'll even take it to the skate park. And there is an electric version of the scooter as well now where you can actually drive the scooter around without having to push with your foot. This is the type of scooter that older people use when they have trouble walking. Sometimes when I go to the grocery store, there's a man there who shops and buys his groceries, but he uses a scooter. So he has a little scooter to scoot around. By the way, scoot is a verb as well. So for me in English, at least in my part of Canada, this is a scooter, this is a scooter, and this is a scooter. They're all scooters. Do you like that word, by the way, scooter? It's fun to say. This is an ATV or four-wheeler. ATV stands for all-terrain vehicle. This is kind of what they invented when people were getting tired of falling off their dirt bikes. That's how I would describe it. It's a vehicle used to drive off-road. Some of them have four-wheel drive where all four tires turn at the same time, like all four tires have power. Some are just two-wheel drive, just the back tires have power. But an ATV is a fun vehicle to drive. There are many, many farmers that own ATVs and use them to drive around on their farms. And there are many, many young people, teenagers who have them because they just like going out off-road and driving and having fun. So ATV, all-terrain vehicle. This is a moped. You do not see these very much anymore. It's very rare to see a moped. A moped is like a bicycle and like a motorcycle. It's kind of a combination of the two. If you look closely, you'll see that it has pedals. So you can pedal a moped, or you can put gas in it and start the motor and drive the moped. So it's a combination of a motorcycle, see the MO, and pedals, PED, so moped. So motorized pedal bike, maybe that was the long version of the name. But again, we don't see these very often anymore. They're very rare in Canada. I think they've gone out of fashion. It's not fashionable anymore. I think other things have replaced the moped, but still a fun word to say, isn't it? Moped. So sometimes people need a wheelchair to get around. So this is a way of transporting yourself. If, for instance, you have injured your legs, or maybe you have another condition that prevents you from walking. Maybe you were born and it's difficult to walk because of a certain condition you have. Maybe you were in an accident and you're unable to use your legs. In all those situations, you would use a wheelchair to get around. And if you are injured just temporarily, you might need to use crutches. Crutches are what you use when you twist your ankle or break your leg. You might need to use your arms with crutches in order to help you walk everywhere. I was on crutches once when I was a little kid because, well, no, I wasn't a kid. I was almost in my 20s, actually. Actually, twice I was on crutches. Once a cow fell on my leg, and once I injured my ankle playing baseball. I don't know if I've ever told the story of the cow falling on my leg. I'll tell it sometime, but not right now. A cow fell on my leg once. I grew up on a farm. If you're older, you might use a cane. A cane is simply like a stick with a nice handle on it. It might be made out of wood or metal. Usually it's made out of aluminum. By the way, in Canada, we say aluminum. In the United States, we say aluminum. In Britain, they say aluminium. We don't say that here. We say aluminum. It's a little easier to say, I think. But a cane is something that you use that assists you when you need to walk. Let's go out on the water for a bit. You can use a kayak. A kayak is a small boat made for just one person, and you sit in the middle of it and you paddle. I have 2 kayaks, and last summer we went kayaking quite a bit because I live on the river. It's smaller than a canoe. It's smaller than a rowboat. It's smaller than a motorboat, and it doesn't have a motor. So a kayak looks like this. It's a very fun, I guess we would call it a personal watercraft. It's like a mouthful to say that. And it's similar to a canoe, but a canoe is actually more open. A canoe has room for more people. And when you go in a canoe, you also paddle. Both kayaks and canoes are usually used on rivers and lakes and not usually used in the ocean. It's a little too dangerous to go in the ocean with it. But for me, going kayaking on the river is fun. Sometimes a friend of mine will come down with his canoe and we will go canoeing on the river. That is fun as well. Fun to do. I would never do this, but this is a hang glider. A hang glider is like a giant kite. If you don't know what a kite is, you have a string and then there's 2 pieces of wood with some fabric or plastic and a little tail, and you fly it in the wind. A hang glider is kind of like a kite, kind of like a wing above you, and you jump off a cliff or mountain and then you just fly down. I say that like I know how to hang glide. I have never been hang gliding. I would never go hang gliding. But this is definitely a form of transportation that you would do for fun. It is a leisure activity. And this is a wingsuit. I would not do this ever. I'm afraid of heights. So I'm scared of heights, so I would never do this. But a wingsuit makes your entire body into a wing so that you can fly for a little bit. And I think at the end, you have a parachute. It looks like this guy has a parachute on his back, right? I think so, for sure. And then we have a surfboard. So you can go surfing on waves. I have never tried surfing, but it is something I would like to try someday. Yes, you find big waves in the ocean. You swim out to the waves and then you get on your surfboard and you surf. Lots of fun. Again, a form of transportation that is mostly used for fun. I have never done this, but I would love to do this. A zipline is when you hook yourself onto a rope that goes from a high spot to a lower spot and you zip along. There is a zipline in Niagara Falls, and Brent and I, before the pandemic, talked about if he came to Niagara Falls, we should do the zipline. I'm still willing to do that someday, Brent. There is a zipline in Niagara Falls that takes you from a very high point on a rope to a low point. You clip yourself on and then you slide along the rope, or you zip along the rope. Yes, I would do that. Even though I'm afraid of heights, I think I would go ziplining. This is something, of course, though, many of you know I would never do. I would never jump out of an airplane. I would never go parachuting. It's just that this terrifies me. There's no way I would do this. But it is another way of moving through time and space, right? Time? Yeah, I guess time. It's a way of transporting yourself from one place to another. You do this by putting a parachute on your back and it's packed in. And then you jump out of a plane and you either pull the ripcord, or as you jump, it's pulled for you and the parachute deploys and you float down to Earth. So I'm not ever doing this one. Snowshoes. You may not be familiar with these. Snowshoes are special shoes you wear on top of your boots or below your boots so that you can walk on deep snow. Jen and I have a pair of snowshoes, but it hasn't been there hasn't been deep enough snow to actually use them. But when the snow gets really deep, when you try to walk on it without snowshoes, your feet go in and it's very difficult to walk. Snowshoes make it easier. It's still difficult to walk. They do make it a little bit easier though. But if you look at this person's feet, you'll see they have kind of these flat webbed platforms that allow them to walk on snow, and they are called snowshoes. There are two kinds of skis. There are downhill skis and cross-country skis. They're somewhat similar, but also not. If you saw them, you might think they're the same, but they're not. Cross-country skis allow you to ski along flat ground and up and down small hills. Downhill skis are made simply for going from the top of a hill to the bottom at a high rate of speed. So cross-country skis are more exercise. Downhill skis are also exercise, but a lot more thrilling. You can have a lot more fun downhill skiing. Although I do like cross-country skiing. I don't have cross-country skis though. Actually, I think there might be a pair in my garage. I should check. When you live in a country with winter, sometimes you own things and don't even realize it. I do know how to downhill ski, but when I go skiing, I rent skis. I rent skis and poles and a helmet. But downhill skiing is a lot of fun. You go up the chairlift and then you ski down. Lots of fun. And then if you are wanting to do something a little different, you can go snowboarding. Snowboarding is probably similar to skateboarding and similar to surfing, but you're doing it on snow. So a skateboard is a flat board with wheels. A surfboard is a flat board that you use on the water. And a snowboard is a flat board that you use when you go down a ski hill. So if you're wondering, you go skiing and snowboarding at the same place. You go to a ski resort and you buy a lift ticket that lets you go up the ski lift, and you can go skiing or snowboarding all day. At home though, we usually just go sledding. We use a sled to slide down the hill behind our house. There is one video where I go sledding, if you ever want to watch that. Not sure if Dave can find it. It's the Let's Learn English in the Winter. There's two of them. It's the one with the thumbnail of me on, the round sled, Dave, the blue round sleds. I'm on one of those. So anyways, a sled is just something you sit on in order to slide down a hill. Let me make it bigger for you. A lot of times kids will go sledding and their parents will go with them. It's not a common thing for adults to do. Usually adults do it with their children, but not with other adults. I don't meet my friends at the park to go sledding anymore. I did do that as a kid though. And then there's something called a toboggan. And this is the same as a sled, except it's made entirely of wood. So if you look at what these kids are sitting on, it's kind of a traditional type of sled called a toboggan. But I will say this, when we go sledding, we use little plastic sleds, but sometimes we actually say we're going tobogganing, even though we're not actually using a toboggan. There's another fun word to say, by the way, toboggan. I loved tobogganing as a kid. And I did love sledding and tobogganing with my own children when they were younger. Lots of fun. And this is the last slide, feet. So one of the most common ways to get from one place to another is to simply walk, is to use your feet. Humans are kind of cool in that way, that we are this walking, talking, thinking entity, person, If I want to go somewhere, I can just walk there. I can put one foot in front of the other. I can take as many steps as I need to get there.